everyone. Today we are going to continue our learning journey in inequality land and talking about how do we solve inequalities with subtraction. Yesterday in our lesson, when we look back, we can see that we learned how to solve with addition, and the goal was to isolate the variable. We are going to continue to do the same thing. We're going to have a goal of isolating the variable. We used the opposite operation on both sides and kept it balanced, just as though it were an equation. This time we're going to be looking at solving with subtraction. So we're going to start with addition, and then we will subtract. One thing that we learned in our lesson is that Big Ideas wants us to have the letter on one side. So we're going to show you today how to adjust for that one little extra bit that Big Ideas wants us to include in our problem solving. So let's go ahead and look at example A. And again, remember our goal is to isolate that variable. So in example A, it says 13 is less than or equal to, so it's either smaller or the same as x plus 14. So again, our goal is to isolate this variable. So we're going to have solve for x on one side, numbers on the other. And at the end, we're going to take this and switch it around so that way we can have make Big Ideas happy. All right, so our first goal is to draw that balance line. We're going to be looking at the opposite operation. So we are starting with adding 14. The opposite is to subtract 14. When I subtract 14, this becomes 0. It goes away. So over here, I'm going to subtract 14, drop down my sign, and drop down my x. So now I have x over here, and I want my numbers. So 13 minus 14, that means I'm taking away one more than what I have. So that's going to be a negative 1. So negative 1 is less than or equal to x. Okay, here is the graphing part that Big Ideas is being picky about, which this is correct. We can leave this just as is, but Big Ideas wants us to take this one step further and have the x on the left side so that you always start with the variable. So if we were to do that, we're just going to move our x over here, flip our sign so that x is still the bigger one, and now we have negative 1 on this side. So this means the exact same thing. If I were to read this backwards, x is greater than or equal to negative 1. It means the same thing as negative 1 is less than or equal to x, just depending on how you want to read it. So this is the part we're going to graph right here. So now we're ready to graph. So in our number line, we know that when it has a line underneath it, the dot is going to be closed. So we're looking at a closed dot. And now our arrow is going to point that direction just like it shows right here. So let's go ahead and graph this. So there's 0, there's negative 1, here's a positive 5. Again, we want a closed dot because it's equal to it. So we're going to fill in that dot, fill it in, and we're going to make this greater than. If you wanted to graph it like this and make your line go the other way because you're saying that negative 1 is less than x, you're totally fine there too. Either way works. Okay, now let's go ahead and look at example B. So example B. The only reason why, again, we switched it around was so that this letter is on the left. We want to have the variable on the left. All right, example number 2. Example number 2 says that x plus 8 is less than or equal to, or no, just less than 14. All right, so again, we're isolating that variable. Our job is to try to isolate the variable, get the variable all by itself. I'm going to use orange, I think, this time. All right, so we're going to draw our line, our balance line. We want x's on one side. We want numbers on the other. So we're going to solve by subtracting 8 and subtract 8. Now it says x is less than, we have 14 minus 8, and that gives us 6. So x is less than 6. Again, the letter is on the left, so we don't need to do anything to this one. This one we can just go ahead and graph with the letter on the left. It says open dot, so we're going to have an open empty dot, and our arrow is pointing that direction because that's the direction it's showing. Okay, so let's go ahead now and graph this on a number line. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, again, we want an open dot, nothing in the middle of it. We don't color it in, and our arrow is pointing so that everything is less than. Okay, we're going to do one more example, and then we will do our try-its. So I'm going to try to squeeze one more example down below, just so that we have this. All right, example C. Let me find a good example for us. A minus 2 is less than 2. Sorry, A plus 2 is less than 2. All right, so we're going to go ahead and solve this problem. Again, draw your balance line. We're solving by doing the opposite operation. So right now we're adding 2, so now we're going to subtract 2. Subtract 2. So A is less than 0. Ooh, a 0. We haven't done a 0 yet, so that's a good example to have. So A is less than 0. So we're going to go ahead and graph this. Again, we're going to use an open dot. All of these were like less than. Okay, so we're going to have an open dot because there is not a line underneath it, and the arrow is less than. So we're going to go ahead and draw at 0, open dot, less than 0. So everything less than 0 is a solution. 0 is not one. Okay, go ahead and hit pause right now so that you can finish writing this problem down. When you're ready, go ahead and hit play again, and then we will do our try-its. There we go. Okay, ready for the try-its for today. All right, our try-it number 1. Try-it number 1, a W. That's odd. All right. Try-it number 1 is W plus 3 is less than or equal to -1. And then try-it number 2. Try-it number 2 says 8 is greater than or equal to D plus 10. Again, this one, letters on the right, so we're going to have to flip this one around to make big ideas happy. So don't forget to do that. All right, go ahead and hit pause right now. pause because I can't speak. Go ahead and hit pause right now so that way you don't hear me solving the problems. When you're ready to check your work, come on back and check it. All right. Number 1, opposite operations. So we have plus 3. I'm going to subtract 3. Subtract 3. I have negative 1. I remove 3 more. And so that gives me negative 4. So less than or equal to, W is less than or equal to negative 4. This one is going to be a closed dot. So this one is a closed dot because it has that line underneath it, so it says that it is equal to. And it's going to be, the arrow is pointing to all of those that are less than negative 4. So let's go ahead and draw out our number line here. We're going to have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. We're going to have a closed dot at negative 4. And then everything that is less than negative 4. Okay, next one. We have 8 is greater than or equal to D plus 10. Draw our balance line. We're going to go ahead and solve. We have negative 10. We're going to do negative 10 over here. So we get D by itself, D. 8 minus 10 gives us negative 2. All right, here is the little bit of craziness right here. Because we have the letter on the left, because the letter is on the left, or not on the left, I mean on the right, the letter's on the right. Miss Englander does know lefts and rights. We need to switch this around. So D needs to be, the bigger needs to be eating the negative 2. So D has to be less than or equal to negative 2. So see how the open mouth is eating that. We can now graph this in Big Ideas. It means the exact same thing, but now Big Ideas is not being cranky with us when we solve it. So again, we have the line underneath. Because it has the line underneath it, it's a filled in dot or a closed dot. 1, 2, negative 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we're going to have a filled in dot at negative 2, closed dot, and our arrow now is going to point this way to make Big Ideas happy. If you graphed it before where it was like negative 2 is greater than D, that's okay if you graphed it that way as well. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and graph it this way because that would mean the same thing. So D needs to be smaller, and this is showing that the solution is everything smaller than D. All right, how are you feeling about solving using subtraction? Did you get your letter to the left? Are you graphing using an open dot or a closed dot as appropriate? Go ahead and answer your essential question. How do we solve inequalities using subtraction? And then put your level of understanding out to the side. How are you feeling? Where are you at with your learning? When you're finished, you can come on back to the Google Meet and ask for help if you need it, or you can go and do your practice work on Big Ideas. As always, I appreciate all of your hard work and effort, and make it a great day.